chat if you may. Your name, pronoun, and organizational affiliation. Love to see where you all are hailing from. Andrew, thank you for waving. Waving is always encouraged. Appreciate that. I see there's some 1199 representation. Abigail, I believe. Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul specifically. Welcome. Everyone's trickling in here. So I think, we'll just give it a couple minutes and then we'll begin. Again, welcome everybody.
This is Brianna's the East New York.
Yeah, please continue introducing yourselves if you could. Your name and organizational affiliation. This is a hybrid event, so there's a lot going on in the space as well. We are honored to be hosted by Prime Produce Apprentice Cooperative. Thank you for hosting us here. We'll talk more about that space in a moment. And we have people walking in, came all the way from Flatbush, perhaps. And how's everybody doing? How about this room? How y'all doing, Prime Live attendees? Yeah, that's right. That's clapping and wooing that you hear. Welcome. So I think we'll get started here. And if I could ask for the slide presentation, please. Hello, Elizabeth Polanco is there. Welcome. That is some abstract art at the moment. Okay, we got Julian, we got Bettina from Lebanon. Welcome. And we're still working out here a little slideshow. It's really not a little slideshow. I don't know why I added that adjective. So welcome everybody, both online and in person, to CEANYC's installment number 2 in our series spotlighting various solidarity economy sectors and focusing, in this case, on housing and land. So I'll speak more about that, but just want to first allow our interpreters to give some introduction to how we're making this a bilingual event in Spanish and English. So take it away, Hillary.
Hola a todos, buenas noches. I'm going to do the announcement in Spanish and English, and then the simultaneous interpretation will be activated. Hola a todos, haré el anuncio en inglés y en español y luego se activará la interpretación simultánea, ¿no? Entonces, para las personas que están sintonizándose a través de Zoom, le vamos a pedir que hagan clic en el icono del globo, haga clic en el idioma que quiera escuchar, o sea, inglés o español. Y opcional, para no escuchar el audio original, haga clic en donde dice Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original y luego seleccionar Done para finalizar su selección, ¿no? Si estás conectada a través de un teléfono móvil, haga clic en los 3 puntitos donde dice More o Más. Haga clic en Interpretación o Interpretation, seleccione español o inglés y después Done o finalizado en la esquina superior. Ahora haré el anuncio en inglés. Hi, everyone. So for folks accessing interpretation on Zoom, we're going to ask you, if you're on your desktop, to click on the globe. Click on the language you'd like to listen to, English or Spanish. As another option, if you would like to not hear the original audio, click on Mute Original Audio. If you're on a phone, on a smartphone, in the control panel at the bottom, click on the 3 dots. That'll lead you to more. Choose language interpretation. Indicate what language you'd like to listen to, English or Spanish, and then to not listen to the original audio, click on mute original audio, and then click on done. We ask folks to be on the lookout in the chat if we need folks to slow down, speak up, or to speak one person at a time. Le pedimos a los participantes que estén pendientes al chat si necesitamos que hablen un poquito más despacio, más alto, o si deben de silenciar sus micrófonos. Bien. And then for the folks here, we ask folks to speak at a moderate pace. If at any point we need folks to speak more slowly, we'll go like this. If we need folks to speak more loudly, we'll go like this. If we need folks to speak one person at a time, we'll go like this. And if we do this kind of rollover motion, this will mean to repeat the last thing you said, okay? Entonces, para las personas que están en el espacio presencial, si ven que hacemos así, le pedimos que hablen un poquito más alto, más recio, así una persona a la vez, así si necesitamos que repitan algo y así si necesitamos que hablen más despacio. Thanks, everyone. Gracias. My name is Hillary and I'm here with Maria. Mi nombre es Hillary. Estoy aquí con mi colega Maria.
No, Hillary, thank you. And Maria, you are awesome. Thank you for making our event closer to language justice and being such a great interpreter. And now we can begin. Again, welcome. As people come in, please introduce yourselves in the chat if you're online, and we'll have a chance to do so here in person at Prime Produce. So I am, again, Ali Issa with the Cooperative Economics Alliance of NYC. And if we could switch to the next slide, please. This is our event for today. It is the Solidarity Economy Spotlight on Housing and Land, featuring our awesome panel, which we'll get to in a moment. But before that, just wanted to give you kind of the rundown of our plans today. So if you actually jump to slide 5. Yeah, there you go. That we're planning on be here till 7:30 and get into particular cases of community-controlled or affordable housing cooperatives and community land trusts, and then have a little bit of exchange with some other relevant solidarity economy sectors, and of course then leaving hopefully ample time for you all to interact and build with one another, which is kind of, always our deepest intention. But before all that, let me just briefly speak about CEANYC, or the Cooperative Economics Alliance, for those that are not familiar. So next slide, please. Thank you. So again, so CEANYC is a cross-sectoral network of various cooperative and community-controlled institutions that work in food, housing, banking, gardening, land, worker cooperatives, and beyond. And our goal is to unite cooperatives and community-controlled groups and support their fights to maintain and ally with other movements to expand their power and challenge the status quo economy. How we do that, slide 7, please. I like the pause, it's really building the suspense. In 3 main ways, we do research and talk about where and who these groups are across New York City. We have convenings such as the one we're attending right now, to try to introduce people that are not working together, and then try to invite matchmaking so that groups are meeting one another's needs and not relying, once again, on the dominant economic forms. So just a couple examples of that. Slide 8 is a map we released a little while back called Seeding Solidarity, which here's a little excerpt of, and you see actually very relevantly that orange concentration are particular kinds of affordable housing cooperatives, and they're very numerous, but not quite known, and this map attempts to reveal them a bit. And then a more recent example of CEANYC's work, slide 9, has been to partner with the Cooperative Home Care Associates, which is the largest worker cooperative in the US, 1,400 member worker owners strong, that provide home care across the Bronx and elsewhere, but also members of the very important and powerful union 1199 SCIU, which is happily represented on this call, and trying to then, as we'll learn from Bernie, introduce the possibility of them working in Co-op City. So again, trying to find needs in a place like Co-op City for home care, and sharing CHCA's as a unionized cooperative unique approach to home care could be an example of that matchmaking. So that's just a little bit about CEANYC, but we came here to talk more specifically about housing and land. So I think I'm gonna just forward to slide 11 to kind of zero in on the unique housing and land models we're gonna get into. And this is a map put out by the New York City Community Land Initiative of the status of community land trusts in New York, right? It's a growing movement, as we'll hear. And then if you go to slide 12, you see a definition of a particular kind of affordable housing cooperative known as HDFCs, which we'll also get into. But slide 13, basically, I mean, I would also add this kind of to discussion, but yeah, are these housing models summarized well by saying that they're housing and land for people and not profit? There's many ways to describe them, but I think that's, you know, was seen on a recent banner at a protest for housing justice. So so yeah, I think that's all for my preamble, and I'll pause there just to share, since the Spotlight series is not just about people's work, but it's especially about how they talk about their work, to invite people to join them, to put it in accessible terms, to get many generations involved. And just one example, and again, Bernie, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, was a TikTok video put out by Dave O2 Real, which I thought was incredibly impressive and compelling, about Co-op City. So before we get to the discussion, just wanted to share this 2 minutes from Dave O2 Real, and then we can get into talking. So if that's queued up, take it away, Dave. All right. Thanks, Dave O2 Real. Wasn't that amazing? I'm a big fan of that. So with that, I want to turn it over to CEANYC board member and organizer with Habitat for Humanity NYC Community Fund, Charlotte Bell. Give it up for Charlotte, y'all. Yeah, that's right. That's right. More clapping. And then she'll introduce our awesome panel. Thank you, Charlotte.
Yes, I think, is this on? Okay, great. Probably on. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for those in the room. Thanks for those online, and especially thanks to our panelists who are here tonight to talk about these really, you know, innovative and also tried and true models of community ownership and participation in land and housing. So we'll just jump right in. On the panel tonight, we have Bernie Silich, who is repping the largest affordable housing cooperative in the United States of America. What? The largest affordable housing cooperative in the United States of America, okay? It's in the Northeast Bronx. It's known as Co-op City. So that is really exciting that we're going to hear more from Bernie about that. We've got Brianna Solin of Brooklyn's East New York Community Land Trust. And super exciting to have East New York CLT here because they are hot off of closing on their historic first property purchase. This is less than 1 month ago. So we've got some burgeoning CLT action happening. We're going to hear about that. Really exciting. And then we've got Io Harrington with the Lower East Side's Rain Community Land Trust, also Orchard Alley Community Garden, beautiful space. So we've got historic land trusts. We've got new up and coming land trusts. It's also, we are repping all parts of the city, coming live to you from from Hell's Kitchen all the way to the Bronx, East New York, Lower East Side. So very cool to be here, and we'll just kick things off. I think first we wanted to hear from you all about how do you talk about these different models, right? It's like Mitchell who? Mitchell Lama? HDFC what? CLT, ABCs of housing. You know, how do you talk to folks about these different types of community ownership? And how do you connect it to our current context and like to people's day-to-day lives? So I guess I'll just start with Io right here just to kick us off.
Sure. I guess the way that I describe community land trust to people is first by discussing the type of buildings that are part of land trusts, specifically affordable housing. And then to explain that just like there are different kinds of pies, all right, different kinds of everything that we can imagine in life, there are different structures of housing in New York City. You know, from market rate to Section 8 to HDFC, which are low income co-ops, to rent stabilized housing. There's single room occupancy. So kind of like generally, without going into too much detail, explaining to them that for at least the Rain Community Land Trust, the housing structure are HDFCs, which are low to moderate income, or at least that's how they started. Affordable housing. They're affordable housing in the sense that the people who live in them own the building, Rain owns the land, and during the closing, that members of the buildings actually agreed to operate in a way that would keep the buildings affordable in perpetuity. So they signed a land ground lease with Rain Community Land Trust. So Rain owns the land under 9 buildings located in the Alphabet City part of the Lower East Side. And it is leased to these buildings as long as they follow certain kinds of management executing management. I'm getting nervous. I'm saying, but they live and operate in a way that manages the building so that they remain affordable in perpetuity. So I'll hand it over to Brianna.
Yeah, that's such a good overview. Ditto everything you said. We have had to explain CLTs, I'm sure, a million times because it's a really novel model of stewarding land. So we make sure, like in every room, that we go over what it is. So it's a tool for community democratic ownership and stewardship of land that separates the building from the land underneath it. The CLT owns the land forever and issues long-term leases to people that are actually using the building, which helps make it more affordable, but also allows for an element of community control because the CLT is making decisions with residents, with broader community members, mission-aligned stakeholders, so that people that live on the land won't be pressured by the market to just cash out for a ton of money. So we keep it affordable in perpetuity, like Io said. But when I'm explaining like why we're passionate about it, why we're like fighting for this model in East New York, I mean, I've been a tenant organizer for years in Brooklyn, and we're always on the defensive against predatory landlords, against speculators. This is just a tool for communities to organize and institute tangible, proactive change in their communities. Like, we know that land is power, and it lets us take back the power. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and Bernie, where are you at? Ber- yeah, Bernie, can you hear us? Great, great.
All right, if you want me to.
Yeah, so it would be great to hear a little bit from you about, how do you talk about the cooperative housing model with people, whether it's within your own housing co-op or in the greater community? How do you talk about the model, and how do you connect it for folks so they can see what the benefits are of this type of housing and ownership?
So let me just begin, if I may. I'm grateful for you inviting me to give you a background of Cork City and how it's survived for 55 years, and it's growing, and it's really a beacon of how housing crisis can be, part of it can be resolved. Today, for example, you have the city of New York, there's 60,000 families who have to find shelter to their homes. There's 50% of the families in the city of New York pay at least 30% of their income for rent, and 25% pay as much as more than 50% of their income for rent. So people are scrambling. Hidden is the fact that, with regard to homelessness, is the fact that people double up and triple up. People have to, in order to pay for their rent, they hold on 2 or 3 jobs. In the Bronx, for example, the median income, median rental on one bedroom apartment is $1,900 for 1 bedroom. That doesn't include gas and food. Now, what is cost? You speak of affordability, there's a simple formula that has been introduced by founders of the cooperative movement in the city of New York, and actually they're founders of cooperatives in the nation. And in the 20s, these folks were radical labor leaders of the dock workers union. They were mainly Jewish, many of them immigrants, and they found that they were winning many benefits for their members, but when their members went home, they went to slums. It was a cold war crime. So they had to find a solution. They found a solution in cooperative system. What that means, co-ops. And of course, housing reform, they also established cooperative food markets, pharmacy, all kinds of milk, distribution, all kinds of cooperative. Now, what was their formula for housing? First, housing they did was that open park. Since then, there was other radical unions established other courts in the Bronx. What was their formula? The formula was that you pay equity for the apartment because you had to have down payment. You had no sugar daddy, and they had to raise money, and then how they did it was they took more from the bank, but folks had to put down some equity, that is some down payment. But that equity was fixed. When they moved out, they only got back what they put in. Unlike market co-ops that you have in the city, people take it and they speculate with it because it's commodity, not a housing. For example, I paid $500 per room when we moved in, and of course, mortgage, bills, and personnel, services, electricity, gas, and all the other needs to operate a store. but the equity was the down payment for the mortgage. Well, if I move out tomorrow, we would get back at $500 per room per month, while a new family move in has to pay $7,200 per room. Okay, to the single mom. So they would have to pay about the $35,000 for the apartment. To move in, they will have to borrow money from the bank, or have to borrow money from our parents, and we pay down $3,000 for our apartment. When we move back out, you don't get $3,000. That's how we keep it affordable. The second thing is, the second item to this is that you cannot sell this apartment anymore. If you sell back to the corporation, that's the board of directors, and you get back only what you put in, you can't speculate. There's no windfall profit on it. And then, includes the cost of buying the apartment at a reasonable rate, which means it doesn't lock out families like us who move in, working. And there's also restrictions of the maximum income people can make to be eligible to move in, like buy an apartment. And of course, there's a minimum, so people have to also pay the account share. So these are two formulas. And of course, how do they get to reach? How was it possible? Well, we get a state legislature passed a bill which focused on equity sponsors before the Senate, Mitchell and Rama in the Assembly, and they co-sponsored the bill and it was adopted to meet the crisis after the war. Housing crisis. Well, they wait like that. Not public housing, because people, as they were winning wages, and income from work, they were ineligible for public housing. But on the other hand, they could afford private housing. Private housing at that time was costly, opened up in 1969, 68. Was going for $100 a room. At that time, it was started out with $23. But of course, it was subject to inflation, and therefore all kinds of problems that occurred that we couldn't pay out wages, and they began to increase our payment charge from people that that's too much. And there was a strike, a rent strike, but actually an rent increase strike, called upon the state to help us out because we just couldn't afford these terrible increases, but they were tough because of these inflationary pressures. We are facing similar inflationary pressures today, and we are in the group of housing, affordable housing for middle-income families is taken in the city, in the state, and we're trying to retain that affordability because we're subject to various inflationary pressures such as infrastructure investments, because many of the co-ops like ours, they're 60 years old and they need to repair.
Okay. Thank you, Bernie. I'm just going to interject for a moment because we do want to get to challenges, historical and into the future, but I want to give Ayo a chance to respond.
Yeah, so many of the things that Bernie mentioned and Brianna are things that apply to Rain Community Land Trust. But I think I want to take just a minute, and I know we have less than an hour left, so I'm going to try to be really brief. I want to bring some history into this and remind or inform people who do not know that the very first community land trust is called New Communities. It was formed in 1969 as a result of the Civil Rights Movement. It was co-founded by a man named Charles Sherrod, who was the field director for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was involved in many of the freedom rides, the nonviolent sit-ins and protests, and jailed many times. When they were in Albany, Georgia, working on voter registration, that is SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, one of the main things that they wanted to do was to empower sharecroppers and farmers. So they worked with Black sharecroppers in order to form a farm collective. And that was the very first community land trust in the entire country. In New York State, while there are about, I think, 90 different kinds of land trust, some are agricultural, some are public green spaces and housing, that Rain Community Land Trust was actually the very first one formed in 1979, but incorporated in 1987. And it's really important to bring in this history because history often gets retold. And the majority of the people who were involved in the Rain Community Land Trust were also people of color. And as someone who was looking for affordable housing during that time, and also being influenced over the years, my very first volunteer experience was in a SNCC office where I learned how to organize. When I saw that there were people who were squatting in my community, we all remember the 70s, the financial crisis, and also the blight in various communities, the crack epidemic, the health epidemic, and also the fact that many landlords were burning intentionally or just letting their properties go, so that there were blocks that were vacant, there were blocks that were half bombed out. And that is one of the, where many of the buildings from Rain evolved from. The building that I live in was once the capital drug site of the area in which I lived. But the concept of a land trust is really to rise, to be a phoenix, to take what exists and to make it better, to take what exists and reclaim it for another purpose. And the purpose of a land trust is to make sure in perpetuity that these things that are on land benefit the general public and the communities in which they exist forever. It is going to be very difficult in terms of institutional knowledge. And, as people grow older and people lose sight of the fact that things are supposed to benefit the community, some people start thinking about, how can I benefit from this building in which I live, this apartment, which I helped to gut and rehab. And it's really important for organizations like CEANYC to exist in order to make sure that there are always people in the forefront fighting to make sure that these organizations and efforts live up to their initial purpose.
Thank you. Yes, yes. And I feel like we're getting into sort of the next phase, which is talking about some of the challenges that these models face. I feel like we started talking about, how they've come up, why they exist, what purpose they serve. I'm hearing, HDFC, Housing Development Fund Corporation. The HDFC model works well with the Community Land Trust, with the CLT, right? These are affordable co-ops created to be affordable. They're on the land trust to ensure that permanent affordability. And then we have Co-op City, which is a Mitchell-Lama model that was created, by the state of New York to provide affordable home ownership opportunities for working class people. And so we've got these solutions that are meant to serve working people in our city. So I would love to hear, what are some of the challenges that, a CLT like Rain that's been around, have faced? What are some opportunities that you see in the future? And obviously, definitely for East New York CLT as a new up and coming CLT, like just bought a building. I mean, I'm sure that was super simple and easy. Like, what are some of the challenges, and what do you see as some opportunities coming up? So we'll go with Io and Brianna, and then we'll get back to.
So since Rain is such an old organization, I would say that the main thing, kind of like Co-op City in a way, but we don't have that home care in place, is that nobody wants to leave these units. They are affordable. I mean, some buildings, people are paying maintenance fee as low as $300, maybe under $1,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But basically, they are in a building that they have lived in for over 30 plus years, and it's affordable. So, but the challenge for RAIN is that it is an all volunteer organization. So staffing it, has been difficult and does not exist at this time, which means that, monitoring and making sure that the mission is executed is difficult as well. And also, just the fact that housing is so expensive in New York City. And about 5 years ago, a lot of HDFCs, of which there are about 2,000 in New York City, and although there are about 2,000 buildings that are HDFCs, very few of them, but mine, actually had residents gutting and then rebuilding the buildings, which took years and took money and took away people's lives every Saturday for 5 years or 7 years, however long it took to gut and rebuild the building. But about 5 years ago, and these buildings have some tax benefits, right? So they're not taxed at all if they have an agreement with HPD for X amount of decades. And if they no longer have an agreement with HPD, then they still have a level of tax exemption. And the city gives that to these types of buildings as long as they, again, operate in a way that is affordable. Monitoring that is very, very difficult. So about 5 years ago, HPD, or 6 years ago, HPD tried to get all of the HDFCs in the city to renew their regulatory agreement so that there were structures in place to monitor what was going on in buildings. And that kind of failed. So the challenge that I'm pointing out is that many want to operate kind of under the wire, so to speak, don't want to be monitored and want to begin to sell their units for ridiculous prices. So even in the East Village, one such building has sold a unit for over $1 million because nobody was monitoring, enforcing the intent. And that has been happening all over the city with these types of buildings. So I would say that that is the biggest challenge. And when somebody wants to sell and they want to profit off of something, they can be tenacious. And yeah, that's a big challenge.
Totally. Yeah, challenges. Where do you start? I mean, one challenge is that we're trying to build a new model while we're existing in racial capitalism. Like, our homes are seen as like financial assets, not as homes that are pillars of the community. So, we're trying to work within the system while also building something outside of the system. That's difficult, especially as we're working with the city to try to acquire vacant land. Another challenge is, especially as we were starting, and this is an ongoing challenge, like the interpersonal work that goes into building a democratic structure that will last to actually execute this really big responsibility of stewarding land that people will be living on in a way that's really principled and long term. So that takes a lot of ongoing work. And yeah, that's our job as organizers, to try to manage those hurdles. I mean, people come into it with a lot of generational trauma. People are tired and are tired of fighting, but we are energized when we build together. And yeah, so we were really conscious of that, of wanting to have a strong democratic structure when we were building out our bylaws, our membership structure. So yeah, that's ongoing. Another element that's difficult to get past is this concept of home ownership as a generational wealth building tool. We know that hasn't worked for our communities, but there's still this mythos of it especially in a place like East New York where people haven't gotten their piece of the pie. They're like, why am I like gonna forego having a profit from my home if we haven't even gotten there yet? So it's like kind of counteracting that and being like, well, it's builds wealth when you can have an affordable, stable place to live. And yeah, so that takes time, but I think people do know that intuitively. And we've seen that home ownership doesn't work, especially in areas like East New York. With the tax lien sale, we're part of a tax lien sale coalition. We know a lot of low-income Black homeowners are maybe at the end, after they've paid off their mortgage, not able to afford to pay their taxes. They end up on a lien sale and they can like lose their asset. So, you know, homeownership, traditional homeownership often isn't working for our communities. An opportunity and a challenge is buying 248 Arlington. That was a huge victory for us, but it's challenging and every day is new. Yeah. Every day is like a new challenge with buying with managing a building for the first time. We're working on setting up a management council with the tenants who've been organizing in their building and already have really strong relationships with each other to take over some of the work of you know, really managing their building with support from us. But yeah, every day is a new day, a new challenge with that.
Yes, thank you both for that. Challenges are just opportunities in disguise or something, right? I mean, it depends when the challenges like outweigh the opportunity. But yeah, Bernie, we would love to hear from you about some of the challenges and also opportunities moving into the future that you see for Co-op City.
It's interesting that you mentioned the fact that some folks
We cannot
in this
hear you.
in your development.
Oh, there we go. Yes, yes. Yes.
People will now look, they put in sweat equity into their apartments and they consider their own ownership and now they own and now they want to see they can become millionaires. You know, interesting. We had a cooperative. He says, "Oh, I'm going to move around. I'm going to buy a house where I can, you know, get equity out of it. You know, after a few years, I can sell it and make money." Well, I didn't think, well, I think on my argument, our argument is this would be my argument for they attempted to privatize Co-op City, and there's been push to do that. And none of mid-development development has privatized. And I had to argue with them this way. Right now, our median rent, cash cut, we call it cash cut like rent because we're co-op, is for one bedroom apartment is $914 a month. That includes gas and electricity. I say the same apartment, if you were to rent it in a private developer, you would pay what, $1,900? So you're saving about $1,000 a month in rent. Over a year, $12,000. 5 years, $60,000. There's your equity. There's your equity. And that's what we are. No, I believe that if you can't fix that these folks who move into these land trust developments and they fix where this is how cooperative movements began in the city. That you have to sell back your co-op to the co-op when you move out, and you only get back what you put in. This way, the incentive of you trying to make a windfall profit on is diminished. And that's the only way you can protect it. But when you talk about challenges, absolutely. We made a challenge because people have the aversion of, oh, I'm going to make them put in money, I put in sweat equity, and then come out the millionaire. No, that's not what housing is. It's not a commodity, it's a need. And if you go ahead and put in that requirement in the development that you guys working, it has to be a co-op person. And it's the board of directors, and they, you know, they partner out staff and expenses and income. can resolve the issue of the question of these challenges that you bring up.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Yes, definitely.
Okay, I just want to add one more challenge, and that is, and by the way, the building that I was talking about is not part of the land trust. It is also, it is an HDFC. And there are many that are selling, HDFCs selling the units for like extraordinary amounts. But a main challenge in the HDFCs is self-management. Most of them are managed by people who live in the building. I currently manage my building again after years. And many people are just, regular people. They are not people who are experts in managing a building, compliance with government agencies, the ability to, look at different bids for projects, don't have a lot of experience with contractors. And so kind of the lack of professional development for such efforts, whether it is a building, it is a land trust of community gardens, or anything else, it's a huge, huge challenge, and often why some of them do not succeed at all or as well as they should. In the recent years, the city has put a lot of money into the development of community land trust. And that is a good thing and something that we should all take advantage of in terms of coalition building and advocacy.
So resources for these specific types of models, whether it's HDFC co-op, Mitchell-Lama co-op, community land trusts. So I think it's kind of part of what this whole series is about, is also like connecting groups within the solidarity economy, like co-ops for co-ops, right? Like a property management co-op that can work with HDFC co-ops. Because, and what I heard, like the thread across the conversation with challenges is really breaking down this myth of, windfall from your property, like property equals profit. Property is private in our country. And we have to change that like it's a community asset and a benefit, and reframing that is really challenging. And so I think we've got so many great people in the room who are part of like this movement also. So hearing from our partners, like the credit unions, we've also got UHAB in the house, about some of these resources and solutions because what we're talking about is community solutions in perpetuity. So we need resources that are here to last, to support. So yeah, I'd love to hear from our partner from Brooklyn Co-op. Do you want to step up, Amanda? Have a
Hi, everybody. I didn't know I was taking the stage. My name is Amanda Trainer. I'm the partnerships coordinator with Brooklyn Cooperative Federal Credit Union. We're a credit union in central Brooklyn. We have locations in Bushwick, East New York, and Bed-Stuy. And we always say you should have a relationship to those neighborhoods in order to join us. You don't have to live there, but some kind of relationship so that we know you're dedicated to the community and we're also serving who we say we serve. So you can move your money to us at any point. See me after if you'd like to. So I hear that a big challenge is democratic management type stuff, which is also in our case too, because we're a cooperative, and so we are also democratically led. And so do you see a way that credit unions can support that? Like we've talked about developing a down payment assistance program for tenants who are looking to buy their apartment through CLT. So that's something that we're working out. And so we thought about kind of concrete things like that, but I guess I'm not quite sure how we can support democratic management. So I'm curious, like if it's just literal money you need, or like what could support democratic management?
I don't think that credit unions can support democratic leadership. The Lower East Side People's Federal Credit Union has been at this for quite a long time, and they have several locations around the city. And they have programs that are specific to efforts within their community. And one of them is a loan program and other support for HDFCs. At a time when these buildings were started in the 70s and in the 80s, they were just informal associations. They didn't really have a formal structure. And so that credit union was the one place in all of the Lower East Side where you could open up a bank account, whether it was an HDFC, to save your money or to pay your bills, or you were a block association or a community garden. So I think especially in East New York, where development of the concept of land trust and ownership is just kind of beginning, that, you know, talking with the people in that community and determining what they say that they need in terms of a financial institution is what you should do to grow your program to a system. That's what I think. And yes.
Totally. I think exactly what you said. I mean, much of the work of developing democratic structures will happen in the organization, like, and that just takes a lot of time and relationship building. But what's helpful about a credit union is that people will know your face and like trust you and trust that you'll be there to explain things over and over again if people need, which people will need. And actually work with us to build a strong relationship and be like physically present. I think that's what's most necessary.
And we love credit unions.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, because we want to develop products and services that you all need, like Lower East Side People's Credit Union. You all have been doing it. And so we want to do the same thing in Brooklyn that you all do in Manhattan and the Bronx. And so, you know, of course we can't like literally support with democratic management, but we do the relationship building with our folks. It's a kind of place where you walk in and people recognize you and know your story. And we don't take into account things like medical debt or things that we know really don't tell somebody's story about if they need a loan or if they need support. And so we really want to be that in the community. I think we've worked well with the Land Trust and transparency. I'm on the board of the East York Community Land Trust. So we've been able to like really weave those threads together. And so, yeah, I think I'll put a call out that we would love to meet with more HDFCs and really envision and brainstorm what it could be to work more closely together. And same with the community gardens. We know that we could be supporting more there as well. So, yeah, I'm trying to think if I have, do you have any questions for me or anything that you're looking for? I'm trying to brainstorm more questions, but also UHAB is here, right? So maybe we could kick it to them and then I'll,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, Bernie.
Yeah, go ahead. He asked. Yes, yes to all of that. Yes. So we have 7,000 members across Brooklyn. Our board of directors, I think there's about 7 or 8 right now. Oh, sorry, go ahead. 7 or 8 boards of directors, and they're all members. So you do have to be a member to be on our board, and we have bylaws and all of those things. So if anybody's curious, it's on the website. You could also reach out to me, and I'm happy to share all those things with you.
And I don't know if our partners from UHAB wanted to also chime in terms of resources and support for, you know, these types of housing models.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Molly. I'm here from the Urban Homestead Assistance Board, which is a nonprofit that works to support specifically HDFCs. We talked about that specific limited equity co-op model, but also I think it's increasingly looking to build solidarity with the tenant movement and talk to our local and state legislature about ways that we can move tenants into a homeownership pipeline, which is really exciting. And I'm also here with Guillermo, who is shareholder who can introduce himself, who works very closely with shareholder organizing. So I guess that each of us want to talk briefly about resources, but just while we're segueing from Amanda, I just want to say thank you for giving that intro, and an exciting new project that you have that's working on with UK Co-op is figuring out how we can get loans to HDFCs specifically for energy efficiency developments. So particularly around solar or electrification, a lot of these projects are really cost intensive and also are in response to safety and community health, also in response to regulations that are coming towards HDFCs and other co-ops and homeowners in general in the city. So the city has these strict mandates around energy efficiency. Getting to meet those regulations requires funds. The UK Cooperative is looking to expand their resources, or we're working on a partnership with you all around low interest and flexible loans for HDFCs. So that is definitely a bit that I think I have heard from the shareholders that I work with. They really appreciate both the trust and also the affordable money that is being like to finance these kind of what would be as more risky or more frontier energy efficiency projects. But you have, as an organization, I personally work with co-ops across the city. We work with about 1,200. You have helped develop over 30,000 affordable units. And we, as a nonprofit, provide free training classes. We try to do both English and Spanish courses. They are online and in person. You can check out our website and sign up. For anyone who don't have to live in each week to attend them, if you're interested in talking to your neighbors about either potential for conversion, for living, we provide a vendor directory, so we're always trying to connect HDFCs to vendors. That is somewhere else we love to plug into the solidarity economy more, is finding more and more vendors who are themselves co-op. As Graham was saying, it's really hard when the people you're working with are not doing housing in the same way that you're doing housing as a community asset. And so that makes those relationships more challenging. We have home ownership lending programs, which are just loans for homeowners in sometimes smaller areas who typically provide with less regulations, or we ask for less documents and everything, so they're often request. We connect buildings to energy efficiency experts in conversations like AC3 and the accelerator to help them meet city regulations. And one of our particular campaigns that we're starting, I'm going to talk to Guillermo, is around finding ways to make property taxes more affordable for HDFCs.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, my name is Guillermo Lara. I'm with Leonard's Court HDFC in Harlem. I'm on board of directors for quite some time, close to 10 years. Nice experience. And what I'd like to share with you is that lately, doing these teachings to this experience, we gathered together with other members, other HDFCs, and created this organization. It's a group of shareholders of HDFCs in the city. We are looking to promote our beliefs, such as HDFCs should be affordable for today's shareholders and for future generations. Also, keeping housing safe. Working together, we can foster community life and solve problems in our buildings. Another item is we are advancing a political vision for housing justice. In other words, we're trying to go beyond our own problems in the buildings by reaching out to politicians and trying to move forward legislation that may help keep SDLCs such as taxation, exception from taxation, property tax specifically. You know that in about 6 years, no, 5 years now, one of the exemptions called the dam tax cap will expire, and we are aiming for extension or somehow changing to another model that may still keep those HDFCs that are affected by that change to still maintain the status as tax exempt. And the last aspiration that we have on we believe is that this housing model, tenant ground, should be expanded, imitated, the citywide, statewide, and nationwide. We need more education, more skill development for our shareholders, leadership, and self-administration. Yeah, that is basically what we are doing through a group called AIPA, right? Affordable housing is for all. That is the meaning of that for AIPA. Affordable housing is for all. We invite everyone living in an HDFC to be part of this group, so we can gather together and create a force that may allow us to work efficiently toward that initial purpose of getting the tax cap extended or somehow changed to something that still gives the benefit of tax extension for HDFCs.
Amazing. Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you. We are making connections. We've got credit unions, and we've got technical assistance providers, and we've got shareholder groups in the house. So we have like 18 minutes left. So I definitely want to make sure that we open up the floor here in the room and also the virtual floor. I think Athena, another board member from CEANYC, is going to help facilitate questions. No, okay, cool. No, that's cool. We're gonna take questions from the floor here or from the Zoom place. So yeah, let's just get started.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah,
Can you for questions, I guess, that come up on the Zoom?
right. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in by reminding people they could type questions in the chat, of course, or they can just raise their hand if they're on the Zoom. And I just wanted to note as well that there's a lot of 1199 members specifically in the Zoom room, which is very exciting. As I mentioned, the Cooperative Home Care Associates is a member of 1199, and then Shaywell Emin is an organizer with them that's on the CEANYC board. So it'd be great to hear from your all perspective and think about kind of the question of movement alliances. What does the labor movement have to do with all this? Especially as, of course, I think Bernie was alluding to, we got different kinds of amalgamated housing as well in the Bronx. They were actually partly formed by unions and the labor movement, right? So what does that have to do with now? So please speak up on that. And I see that Vernice has raised her hand, who I believe is also very eloquent about these topics. So Vernice, please take it away.
Hi, thank you everyone for your presentation. Boy, I got a lot out of it, and my brain is going. For starters, I'm in Mid-Atlantic, Roman houses in Brooklyn, New York. I've been here since 2005, and the maintenance has went up substantially, like everything else. But I have a question and a comment. A question for Bernie. Living in the Mid-Atlantic, it seems like the benefit of being a shareholder is not, it doesn't seem like, it seems like people are more like renters now instead of shareholders. You know, they need to know that they're shareholders. And I was just wondering, I could probably talk to you after, like a long conversation about it. But I'd like to speak to you later on about how you feel about that and how we can, keep that established in the government houses, in the management, like how do you move, the board? We got this stale board and they're not communicating with the shareholders. So, I'd like to speak to you, contact you after for that. And, Charlotte, if anyone from the UAKB have any answers for that, you can let me know that, do that. And for the credit union, that also, I think they need to have more presence in the community. You know, I don't think that our communities get the benefit from banking that they would get from being involved in the credit union. And I think a lot of people in our communities don't have bank accounts or don't understand the financial benefits that come with banking and saving. And I think that those services that the credit union offers would be very beneficial for regular lay people that just go to work, save their money, spend their money, and worry about the charges that banks have and stuff like that. So I think that a bigger presence of credit unions in the community would be important.
Thank you, Vernice. I was just gonna actually, because I think I maybe saw another hand. Maybe we could take like another question and then kind of have the responses bundled. Was there another hand? I believe in the crowd here we have Lupe Sanchez, and then from the Zoom, is there anyone else on stack? Someone raised their-
Ann.
Did I catch? I'm sorry. Oh, and Ann. Okay, and Ann. Yes.
Oh my God. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the very informative presentation on the topic of messaging around generational wealth. I really appreciated the explanation I think Bernie gave about, equity from the community perspective. But I think a lot of people, to your point, I don't know what the motives are really about pulling out equity for my own self, but many people think about for my family. And so my question is, are homes that are participating in community land trust transferable, inheritable? Can I leave it in my will to somebody so that should I live there till the end of my days, I know that just like my regular house out in the open market, my grandchild, whoever, I can leave it to in my will. Would they be able to inherit? No. Okay. Can you explain a little bit about that? Thanks.
Apparently that's a 2-for-1 because that was Ann's question. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to speak about the Rain Community Land Trust, but I'm sure other land trusts are the same. And Bernie talked about the fact that when you leave, you sell it back to the corporation. You don't sell it yourself, right? And the reason for that is because, and for Rain, there are some rules, and it's really kind of up to the building to make the determination. But if somebody lives in Wisconsin and they're your nephew, and you want to leave them the unit, and they're really not involved or even aware of like the intent of a land trust or the idea of self-management in a building, where if you see a piece of paper on the floor, you're going to pick it up and throw it away. You also will maybe wash the windows in the front of your building yourself. I mean, so the idea is that you sell it back to the corporation, and the corporation itself makes a determination about eligibility. That does not mean that your relative cannot apply, but the target population are long-time residents within that community. That doesn't mean others can't apply, and people who have been displaced. That's the purpose. So anybody can apply once there is a vacancy to the corporation to get the unit, but you cannot just pass it down to someone else. And also, most co-ops, land trust co-ops, will give priority to an adult child who is still living in the building. or some other relative who has been living with you in the co-op over the years. But yeah, the idea of being able to leave it, and what you can leave in your will is your estate. And so any profit from the sale that goes to the shareholder would go to the shareholder's estate. And then, of course, family members have to figure that out themselves, right?
Yeah, the building that we acquired, 248 Arlington, is a rent stabilized building. So it has those like similar succession rights protections. If you're living in the apartment for 2 years with your family member, you'd get the apartment under the rent stabilization laws. We are looking like long term to convert it to resident controlled co-op. And we'd want those same protections for people to have a place for their kid to live if they're living with them. But yeah, like for building generational wealth, it saves families money to have a stable place to stay that they know will be affordable in the long term. Bernie, I don't know if you want to add.
All right. Economic development restricted, as I pointed out, in the detail of their problems. They can get succession rights to their nearest kid, their child, or mother, or father, whatever. However, because of that restriction, the Economic community, about 95 units throughout the city, is the most integrated, affordable, middle-income housing in the state and nationally. That is one thing. Yes, there is a very strict waiting list that is monitored by the co-operators and by the state or the city for this city. But that is one thing we pride ourselves. That this is the most integrated middle-income housing in our city, not in the nation.
Thank you, Bernie. That's awesome. I believe, if I interpret it correctly, you're inviting us all to live in Co-op City. Do we have that? Are you inviting everyone attending to come be your neighbor and live affordably? I see Vernice has a hand up, Molly as well, but Amanda wanted to put. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Ms. Vernice. We know credit unions and banking have to build trust, and we know that word of mouth is everything. And so, we're always willing to come do presentations. I recognize your name. I don't think we've met, but you're with a garden in Brownsville, I think, right? Okay, okay. I thought we had. I can't see your face, so I'm sorry. I'm good with faces. But yeah, I would love to connect with you, and this goes for anybody on the call or in the room. We can always come do presentations and talk to folks about what we do, and we also want to know how we can support your garden. I think you were fundraising recently, so yeah, we should talk. And if it's okay with you, I'll ask Ali to make the connection. But yeah, that's for everybody. Thank you.
Be happy to, of course. Yeah, and so I see that Molly raised the hand, but I believe. I'm sorry. Oh, right. Yeah. So there's still kind of a hanging question, but for someone that hasn't spoken, it seems that Faith was suggesting that maybe was there a hand up from Shay Wall perhaps that I missed, or am I off? No. Okay.
It's Faith. I just saw Shay Wall go down there a little while ago after I believe you kind of prompted for you recognize the 1199 is in the house, and then saw him go off camera. So I thought he was going to speak. Maybe he had to step away.
I see. And then you are. Would you mind introducing yourself, Faith?
Oh, goodness, I'm just put on my PJs. My name is Faith Wiggins, and I am not with the labor union. I'm adjacent with the training and employment funds, supported by both the union and employers. But I have been a part of some committees that Shay Wall and his team have stood up to look at co-ops as a strategy for union building and all the things, the concepts here that we're discussing in terms of generational wealth and people power, right? Which is what the union's all about. And there's another book from the union here, so my path here, I was trying to catch Andy Riker. I worked at the Homesteading Assistance Board a very, very long time ago when I did not have any gray hair whatsoever. I also worked at Cooperative Home Care Associates before joining my role running training and other improvement initiatives with the home care workforce, also now nursing homes and folks in our CBO department. But there's a lot of dynamic things going on. But Shaywall is in at the union. I don't want to overstep and speak for him. Here he is. Yes.
I don't know if I should come in, on that alley. I know that there are probably hands up, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Molly did respond in the chat, and we do just have a few minutes left. I don't want to step on Charlotte, but I think
Do we have questions in the room?
yeah, take it away, Shaywall, please.
So I wanted to say, I think that there are some opportunities, actually, there's a lot of opportunities here for us, linking what actually has been almost 200 years and making it the Knights of Labor started. I think we're at that point in terms of where we are in history as capitalism is changing, and we're into this neo-industrial technological age. And so I think it's important for us to realize and recognize what's working. The best, or one of the tools that we need is the cooperative, is the idea of linking organized labor with the community, linking the organization of actually, as we have right here with CEANYC, strategic alliance, as we've been doing over the last year. And I think that it's important for us to measure where we are in co-op cities, and even calling, actually, with the brother who worked in talk today, with the idea that we can think about moving, Bernard, this is where I see it, that if we can maintain that 100-fold by calling on the state of New York, by calling on the federal government to do a Mission Alama 2.0 in 2024, that we have the ability to do that now, and we should strategically align ourselves with all that you have, the food co-ops, with the idea of healthcare. Now, we're a little behind on the healthcare, because to me, that is the anchor of our communities. Because all of us have, from childcare to the idea of aging, healthcare becomes the question that how do we control that mechanism, control that capital that gets filtered out into our community. I'm sorry if I'm being broad, but I just want to say that this part, this CEANYC alliance with the 1199 is key. I believe that we have a lot of work to do. I don't have a question or this is a statement, but I like how Bernard touched on it. There's a history here, but we need to move it. Perhaps we need a mass summit of all the different solidarity economies to talk about how do we build 100,000 men and women march onto Washington, D.C. to demand a Mission 2.0, to demand that idea of right to say that you cannot sell in our communities what we have in terms of the right to first refusal. How do we say to to the United States, to the state government, that we want food in our communities that represent health and wellness and not kill us, right? How do we talk about that? And I think we have to make the making of this here now. And so I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Shaywall. Yes, we are building, we are making connections here. And so we've got some follow-up. I think Amanda's going to follow up for Bernice. And I think we're, making all kinds of connections. And so I think before we go, we just want to close out to plug the next one of these Solidarity Economy Spotlights, which is mutual aid.
Yeah, and actually, there's a slide that can show that's kind of be visual, but then Brianna, I think, wanted just to put in maybe to close out. You wanted to mention?
I just wanted to quickly respond to what he said, that yes, we need structural change. We need change on a policy level, and we need to pass COPA on the city level, Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, which is part of the Community Land Act, and TOPA on the state level, which would really empower us to make everything that we're talking about a reality in a bigger scale.
Thanks, Brianna. Yeah, so just to Charlotte, if you could actually, Yuko, just show the second to last slide, which is the third installment of this series. Just kind of look it up there. The first was money and finance, which we're building on, obviously, with the presence of the credit unions, and this one is housing and land, and number 3 is mutual aid in the broadest sense, solidarity economy practices, which maybe aren't formal, right? Talk about community free, think about community-owned internet is something we've been looking into more and has, of course, a great potential to collaborate with housing. I know they're looking into Co-op City, Bernie, we could talk about that. And then finally closing with food and gardens the month after. So that's the plan as we've set it up, and really appreciate Shaywall's input there. And the last thing to mention too is that, in terms of follow-up, as we mentioned, we're planning to do this very intensive outreach with 1199 and Cooperative Home Care Associates in Co-op City. So watch out for news coming up there, and I'll pass it back to Charlotte to close.
Do we have any closing statements from our other panelists, Io or Bernie? Anything? Yeah, and also Brianna. Yeah.
I have one more invitation. If you want to support the work that we do, we're doing a solidarity action for our neighbor Tammy, who's fighting to stay in her home. There are predatory investors trying to buy her home and flip it. So support us in Supreme Court Thursday, March 21st at 9:30 a.m.
I think I'd like to close by just talking about somebody, I don't know, maybe in the audience, talked about the power of land. Someone mentioned it. And really what this is all about is the power of land. And I am associated with other land efforts as well. As soon as we finished gutting and rehabbing our building, we went out to clear the land to create community gardens. And in my neighborhood, there are 53 such community gardens. It's the highest density of them. And also, worked for many years with the development and preservation of the New York African Burial Ground National Monument. So land, and I talked about the sharecroppers, during the civil rights movement. And that land was eventually taken away from them through racist laws and human terrorism against them. So, holding on to land and making sure that it is in control of the community, that it can benefit is very important. And so for that reason, I'm really happy to have participated in tonight's discussion and look forward to more in the future.
Thank you. I think we are out of time. I think that's a great point to close on.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Charlotte. We are a little over. Thank you all for continuing to be with us. We'll be following up by email and giving the information for all the organizations. And in general, I just want to shout out to the interpreters. They were so awesome in making our event bilingual. This is also the moment when I'm like, say interpreters are awesome. And then what they have to interpret that, so it's hilarious. But they have to say what I'm saying. It's a great game to play. Also, thank you to Prime Produce, Apprentice Cooperative. Yeah, this space is great. It's West 54th and 9th. It's a great space, and we're trying to have basically, kind of a default space for CEANYC, since it's obviously sharing our values, and it's such a great place. So please come check it out. And thanks again for coming. When I say housing, you say justice. Housing.
Justice.
Housing.
Justice.
Oh, man, we got to work on chanting is not our strength, Okay, so I guess with that we'll close. Thanks, Zoom people, and till next time. Closing song. How about some Guatemalan music? I don't know.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
Yeah, Io. Okay. Nice. Thank you. All right. Good night, all.